Do you remember the last time you visited a garden? It is such a blissful experience to visit a fruit or a flower garden. Their fragrance, their beautiful colors indeed delights our mind and refreshes our soul. But have you ever wondered how do these flowering plants reproduce? Do they reproduce in the same way as other animals do? Or is there a special process for these flowering plants? Indeed, there is, and nature has blessed the flowering plants with a special process. Well, do you know what this process is known as? This process is known as pollination. To make pollination work successfully, the pollen grains must be transferred from the same species of flower. It is through the process of pollination that the pollen grains are transferred from the anthers, that is the male reproductive part, to the stigma, that is the female reproductive part. This process is also known as the first step of sexual fertilization in the plant. Now, you must be wondering, where do these pollen grains come from? The pollen grains are formed in the pollen sac, which is enclosed by the anther wall, which is made up of many layers. Therefore, the first step of pollination is the release of pollen grains through the anther sac, which is also known as anther dehiscence. Depending on the source of pollens, pollination is commonly divided into two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. When the pollens are transferred from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower, it is known as self-pollination. Self-pollination is commonly seen in flowers that have both the male and the female reproductive parts. Let me tell you an interesting fact about self-pollinating plants. The length of the anther and the stigma are more or less the same. Thus, it makes the process of pollination much easier. After studying about self-pollination, let me tell you about the other type of pollination, known as cross-pollination. Cross-pollination occurs between two flowers when the pollens are transferred from the anthers of one flower to the stigma of another. It is due to pollination that flowering plants are able to produce fruit, produce seeds, and transfer genetic information to the offsprings. So, next time you look at a flower and wonder about its mode of reproduction, you have the answer: pollination.
For more such fantastic videos, follow Toppscholars.